Hey, everybody. Welcome to the BA Zone's pre-show. We're going to get going in just 2 minutes. Hope everybody's having a fantastic Tuesday. It seems like it's been a long day today already. We've been really, really busy here and at work, as I'm sure everyone else is. But we're going to have a good time here tonight. We're going to be talking about opportunities in healthcare monitoring for the business analysts. So we'll be getting to that in just a couple of minutes. You know, there's so many new things going on out there with devices and healthcare, and we're going to talk about the importance of them at this time, um, as we go into a lot of issues with our healthcare in general, and how some of these remote devices can help out with that. So we're going to get going in just about a minute. So if you know anyone who might be interested in this topics or just want to hang out with us, pass us along, and we should have a great time. And as always, just feel free to chime in. A lot of news. Actually, since we talked about doing this show, we scheduled it a couple of weeks ago, and there's been a lot of stuff in the news about devices and different types of things. So it seems we're timely, which is always a great thing. So it should be a lot of fun. So get your little fuzzy slippers on, get your light little hot cup of tea or coffee, and we'll get going here as soon as Kathleen gives me the okay. Okay. Oh, anybody catch the Oscars? I did watch the Oscars all the way through, and I thought it wasn't bad. It was actually pretty good, even without an MC. But tonight I'll be your MC, and it looks like it's 8 o'clock and it's go time, and Kathleen has given me the high sign that we're all set to go. So welcome, everybody. Welcome. Hi to the BA Zone Live. Tonight we're going to be talking about BA opportunities in healthcare monitoring. And before we do that, let me introduce myself. I'm Marianne Morrison, and Kathleen Sinnott is keeping us on life support, or live support, I should say, in the background. And together we are the BA Zone. So if you know anyone who might be interested in tonight's topic, a friend, a coworker, someone you met on a bus, or that certain someone laying on the couch, please invite them, and feel free to comment or ask questions during the show. We don't bite, and neither do our dogs. So put up your feet and enter that meditative zone while Kathleen spins our intro. Kathleen, away we go. Okay, I'm in a meditative mood. Okay, opportunities in healthcare monitoring is tonight's topic. Healthcare providers and payers are continually looking for ways to increase access to quality care, target treatment options, improve patient outcomes, and improve the overall health and wellness of people. And all they're doing this while they're trying to reduce or prevent ER visits or hospitalizations, the progression of diseases, and even predict the needs of a given population, and all at a lesser cost. And right now we're also faced with, and I had just heard this actually reported on the news, that we are faced with a nationwide shortage of physicians. And we still have no shortage of patients. And I don't mean patients as in be patient, I mean patients as ill people. So if you've been in the hospital lately, or if a family member, you've seen firsthand the struggle, and you can feel the strain going on. Healthcare providers need timely information in order to make decisions. They need out-of-the-box thinking and solutions that are secure and easy to implement, and provide a continuum of care to what's become a very fragmented service or industry, the healthcare industry. Healthcare monitoring is answering some of those needs. It's a growing trend that is capitalized on technology that began with the activity trackers or the wellness wearables, and even gaming to a certain degree. And it has exploded as device companies look for new uses and outlets for their products. And healthcare monitoring it uses digital technologies, in the form of smartphones, these wearable devices, these watches, or even implantable sensors now and other products to monitor patients outside of a clinical setting. So it could be in your home, it could be actually anywhere. You could be on vacation, wherever it allows you to do that. It gives you a certain amount of freedom. And data is either stored in these devices or a smartphone, for example, and they are securely transmitted later or at some point in time, or they're directly transmitted, again, securely to the patient's healthcare providers, to their caregivers, and if they have an electronic health record, right, to those electronic health recorders. In some of those devices, you can enter parameters that will actually warn a patient if one of their biometric measurements is too high or too low, or if they need to perform a certain type of action. Or it could also send a message or a notification to a caregiver, that something's going on. So this ability to gather data outside of the clinical setting provides a much richer data capture that can reveal trends. It can provide early detection of issues that might go unnoticed if you were in the physician's office. Sort of like when you go take your car to the service station and you have that little sound going on, and as soon as you get there, the sound stops. Well, the same thing happens when you go into the doctor's office. You say you had this sort of feeling and you don't have it now because you're in the doctor's office. So it can detect a lot of those things that may go unnoticed because you're using it continually or more frequently outside of that clinical setting. So it can prevent complications. It can reduce office visits, ER visits, hospitalizations. And if you're hospitalized, it can reduce your length of stay and the overall cost of being in the hospital. So healthcare monitoring improves efficiency, and it provides information upfront, and it allows the healthcare provider more time to actually focus on patient care, treatment, and communication. So before we go any further, I'll have Kathleen, speaking of communications, put up our screen of where you can catch us tonight and all the places you can find us. Again, if you have any comments or questions during the show, just go to thebazone.com and go to the comments there. We're on Twitter at the BA Zone, Instagram, Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube. So that's just our one little commercial break, see what's going on out there. And let's just keep continuing with our subject tonight. Okay, so with all of these remote devices, there's a tremendous area of use and where it benefits patients. It can be used for diseases or comorbidity management. I was just, again, listening to the news tonight, actually, and they were talking about, continuous glucose monitoring for diabetics. And it used to be, it was a wearable device on your skin. And now they're actually implanting sensors under your skin that are good for 3 months and continually monitor your blood glucose levels. And you change it every 3 months, and it can warn you if your sugar is too low or if your sugar is too high. Things like that in high-risk patients that need to be monitored for new or worsening conditions. There's things like, you can devices to check your weight that automatically notify when your weight goes up 2 or 3 pounds for congestive heart failure patients. Because if you don't do something about that, if you don't take a diuretic or if you don't contact the physician, it could wind up in a hospitalization. So these type of chronic diseases that we need to monitor, or COPD, your oxygen levels, your oxygen stat levels, that can be monitored on an ongoing basis. Even if you're pregnant and you have pregnancy issues like gestational diabetes or hypertension, that can trigger premature births or problems with the mother. It has advantages for post-operative or post-discharge monitoring. There's some of that going on for geriatric or elder care, people that are at risk for falls, or for medication monitoring, or, again, message to caregivers in the geriatric population. It can be used for mental illness, drug and alcohol issues, people that are homebound with particular mobility issues and they can't get to a doctor's office, or outreach services where language is an issue, or people have learning disabilities, or people with inadequate support systems. All of these things or conditions add cost and expense to the healthcare, and it doesn't provide the ability for people to connect with their healthcare provider easily. And again, monitoring on a continual basis will give you far more information than just going every 3 months to the doctors to monitor your blood glucose. So this expansive growth in technology has brought together some really big names in the device industry, along with hospitals and providers who are looking for solutions to their needs. So, there's Fitbit and Garmin and Apple. And actually, Apple recently has been doing a lot of studies with monitoring healthcare. They've donated smartwatches to hospitals to see if they make an impact in hip and knee replacement surgery, by providing tools that monitor them prior to surgery and after surgery. They've also are getting into binge eating disorders and bulimia nervosa, and they're tracking depression symptoms. And Amazon, actually, Kathleen had sent to me today that Amazon is partnering with a hospital, but the Amazon Echo's actually in the hospital rooms, where if a patient, instead of hitting the call button, if the patient asks for, a nurse, a nurse will come, versus an aide if they had to, go to the bathroom or something like that. And it would go and message the correct type or level of personnel in the hospital, or if they need medication, and it'll also change the channel because it does that today, right? So it'll change your channel. So this is just some of the way that, these device companies are looking for a way to expand and move their product out there and actually help the condition across the board. And with these sort of great opportunities, as BAs, we know, come a lot of great challenges that are associated with this. And those challenges are our opportunities. So when you think about all of the type of disease management monitoring devices that are potentially out there, and just think about all of the personas or the profiles that you would have to create for the different type of people or patients that you would manage, it's astronomical. There are other areas too with, security. How is all this data being transmitted? Most of it is going to go to the cloud. It's going to be stored in the cloud eventually, because a lot of the provider databases just can't handle this type of volume, this continuous monitoring. So how are we going to transmit it to the cloud? How are we going to transmit it securely, or people access it securely? I mean, security is a big thing, and it's always on my mind. It's always on Kathleen's mind when we're talking about data, especially healthcare data. Is it HIPAA compliant, et cetera? So it has to be super secure. People are not going to use it. They're not going to trust it. There was recently, we're talking about personas. There's also use cases, a tremendous amount of use cases when you think of the plethora of devices that are out there, and how each of those devices or type of devices, they're going to have to pick certain ones, the higher ones, I suppose, in order to take that data in. And Amazon, not Amazon. It was Apple recently that, had a device that sent out warnings and sent out 911 calls, a lot of them. And it was not a user error, it was a device error, and someone didn't catch that particular use case, or it wasn't tested appropriately. I mean, things are going to happen, but these are the type of things as business analysts we would have to think about, security, transition of data securely, and access, and who accesses it, who gets that information, and how do we keep that information secure. Another part of the problem is that, there's this, it's not just one provider we're talking about. It could be multiple providers that we're talking about. Eventually, if we're talking about hospitals and hospitals having access to that full continuum of care and all that biometric readings, et cetera, it's complicated by the fact that patients could go to more than one facility. They can go to more than one provider. So how do we allow that access by these different providers in a secure manner? And how do we get that data to the right people at the right time? Another issue could be around medications. We have, if we're monitoring medications for a particular patient, or if there's a device to monitor medications, I mean, you could probably scan in a barcode from a medication. But again, that is something that a patient would have to do, or someone would have to do. And there could be error there, or there could be people that don't put those barcodes in or medications on purpose. And there's no ability right now for us to connect, for those devices to connect to pharmacies. And again, there's multiple pharmacies, there's multiple issues, but that sooner or later will also, you can bet on it. It'll be coming down the pike at some point in some shape or form, the ability to do that, either from the claims perspective or from the actual prescription or where it's written. So there's those type of the mapping, just the mapping, the sheer mapping of defining the different places where you can collect this data, the different channels of where this data would come from, the different devices. These are all use cases, personas, et cetera, and mapping of logic, et cetera. But again, it's all about empowering patients to sort of take control, give them more access. There may be issues when a hospital or a facility decides to pick a particular device to use. There's, integration of that device with their existing platforms. It's never easy. A lot of these existing platforms are legacy platforms that are extremely complicated. I won't say mainframe, but some of them, they still may be on mainframes, not using cloud. So trying to adapt that device and that information is going to also require a lot of analytical skills to make sure that is coming in and going out correctly. And compliance is the biggest issue around that. When we're talking about HIPAA standards, privacy, there's a lot of data breaches and hacking that can result. And when we're talking about, patients, we could potentially be talking about life and death situations. And any type of hacking can cause really a tremendous amount of injury, not only, financially, but even treatment-wise, if it were hacked, and the legal exposure that's all around that. So just pick an area you want to get involved in with remote monitoring, and you're pretty secure, whether it be privacy, whether it be FDA and security standards, data security, use cases, personas. All of this is personally identifiable information. So you have to make sure that unauthorized parties cannot get a hold of it. And that is the biggest compliance issue that you're going to have. The other compliance issue, again, is people themselves using the devices and being comfortable enough. So you want to make sure that, if there are alerts or messaging that has to go out, BAs would need to define all that alerts, all those messaging, where that messaging will reside, and how it will be triggered and how it will be shut off. Again, it's all about integration with whatever type of application or device. There also may be another level to this, which is the management of actually all of the data. Is there an application in the physician's office or the hospital that aggregates all of this data? You know, collecting all this data is fantastic. It's great, gives you lots of insight, but you have to know how to slice and dice that information and display it appropriately. And then what do you do with it? How do you go about using it? How do you display it to a clinician? What do they do with it? And how do they respond to it, et cetera? So you want to be able to maximize that. And it may be that you have to deal with another layer, and that is sort of this application that sits on top and takes all the data and does something with it. And again, lots of areas for displaying. Now we're talking about UI, UX, if you're interested in that with the business analyst side, displaying that information in an appropriate way so that they can get down to what they need to quickly to respond to it without too much back and forth, scrolling up and down, etc. So all of this data has to be able to, whatever you design has to be able to accommodate various devices, various channels of data coming in. Again, all good for us, all good for, there's jobs out there. This is an expanding, and like I said, it is exploding. I mean, they're talking by 2020, you know, up in $500 million worth. And this is also global. So there's also all of these legal issues that are going to occur that are going to have to be ironed out. You know, transferring data through states, through different states, how it would be handled by Medicare and Medicaid across states. If we're talking global, and there is a use for this globally as well, how will that, you know, different governments will have different standards, and getting into the standards of this type of data transmission and portability, et cetera. It is so powerful. I mean, we can be looking at trends when people are purchasing certain medication within a given geographic area if there is a flu epidemic about to occur. I mean, that's how powerful all of this data is in the back end. You know, if there's an uptick in people buying cough medicine, well, there's probably something going on locally there. Is it air quality? Is it asthma medication? I'm not sure. But again, so many avenues for a business analyst to get involved in. And it really, if you're interested in it, you know, just go out onto the web and type in remote healthcare monitoring, telemedicine, mobile healthcare, telehealthcare, any of those areas. And again, there's tons of opportunities out there. You could also look up some of the companies that are getting involved in these devices, you know, and see if you can work directly with those companies. A lot of them will be wanting to implement them into hospital situations. They'll be looking for BAs to go out there and assess the type, you know, the type of patients that they have, the economic structure, infrastructure, et cetera. So there's a lot of avenues, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, healthcare is changing rapidly. Hopefully the remote industry will make it much better than what it currently is by, you know, easing up healthcare providers to actually manage someone's care as opposed to just tracking and entering data every time a patient just comes in for a visit. It'll be a much richer experience for both the patient and the physician. So let me just check back with Kathleen, see how we're doing. Let's see. Oh, we have, I hope I pronounced this correctly. Karthik is watching on YouTube from Jacksonville, Florida. How are you doing? Hope you're having a great night. And we have a question from, oh boy, I slaughter names. I'm so sorry. So I apologize ahead of time. I'm going to say, Mikas, you guys have some tips about CRM business analysis. a business analyst, some tips. I'm not. Can you give us a little more information about what type of tips you're looking for? And we'll not exactly sure if you could just refine that in for us just a little bit. What kind of SQL knowledge does a BA need? Oh, Karthik. Okay, I'll answer that while you're thinking about that other question. Well, that's a very good question. SQL, actually, we're working at a company right now that uses a lot of SQL knowledge. It's always helpful to have some technical knowledge on the back end. Do you need to know SQL and how to write SQL? No, you don't. If you go out on the internet or just get a basic understanding of SQL language so that you can talk to a developer or testing or QA, that should be good enough. I mean, as far as, how to select a file, the where statements, things like that. I didn't know SQL actually at all. And I actually was able to go in the back end and read some of it just by getting some pointers on the internet and some definitions. And I was able to actually follow the code. It's sort of Englishy. I mean, you can get to it, but you don't need a very deep knowledge of it. No, you don't. To be a business analyst, you don't need a deep knowledge. Just an understanding so that you can have a decent conversation with a developer if you wanted to do something or if you need to look in data. Again, anything is helpful. Do you have to have it? No, absolutely you do not. So back to CRM, I don't know if we had that, if you clarified that question. I haven't seen anything come forward. So are we talking customer relationship management, CRM? If we're talking Salesforce, I have no tips around it, not unless you can give me a specific topic or something that I can delve into a little bit more. And you can always go to the BA Zone and leave a detailed message, and we'll get that back to you if you can't get back online or if you need time to think about it. Okay, so I hope that's answered some of the question. I don't see anything else going on tonight. Again, it's a great topic to get into, and I'm drawing a blank because it's getting late this evening. But anyway, it's 8:25. But again, if you have any comments or questions or need any further explanations, please go to thebazone.com and we'll be sure to catch up with you because we love to do that. Actually, I have to answer one tonight. So I'm looking forward to that. And please feel free, again, if you have any topics that you'd like us to talk about, if you want to clarify CRM, maybe we can talk about that in a future show because we definitely get a lot of our topics from you folks. So please feel free to do that. And please join us next week, same time, same place. And we look forward to having you. Look forward to seeing you. And other than that, everybody have a fantastic night and a fantastic week. And we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody. Good night.